future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for bearing with us. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we are here, and you are on the couch with Dr. Judy WTF with the Freud. And today I have a special guest from the Psychological Healing Center, one of our latest additions to the team. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you. It's really such an honor, such a privilege being here. So thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. And the audience needs you because everyone's always asking me for therapists that they can afford. So Jasmine Elazari is an intern, an MFTi life coach, and she is also a doctoral candidate and a professor at Pacific Oaks College.
Yes.
And so we'll talk a little bit about what you do, your background, and mainly I want everybody to know that we at the Psychological Healing Center, as many of you know, do mind map therapy. We do therapy via Skype, teletherapy, and Jasmine is our sliding scale therapist, and her fees range anywhere from around $65 on up. Mm-hmm. And so please feel free to contact the Psychological Healing Center, and I'm training her personally to be an excellent therapist. She already has excellent skills, and now she's learning the mind map.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. and tonight we're going to be talking about a very overlooked wound of childhood, smothering, spoiling. Mm-hmm. I talk about wounds of childhood, which there are 5 of, and today we're going to focus right in on this smothering and spoiling aspect of the wound. Those 5 wounds are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, and smothering, and what that does to a child. And there are different kinds of smothering and spoiling, and we're going to get into that. And mainly one of the reasons that Jasmine is here today is because she comes from Persian culture.
I do.
Yes.
Iranian culture.
And one of the wounds in the Iranian culture is the wound of
smothering.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of our biggest ones, I would say.
I think so.
Yeah, totally.
And being that we're going global and cross-cultural, and we're talking about cultural wounds, do we have a call-in already? That's really cool. Okay, hello, you're on the couch with Dr. Judy and Jasmine. Hi. What's your name? Hello? Do we still have the person? Okay, so call back. Okay, so let's get into the subject a little bit, and then we'll take calls. I'm going to ask the callers to keep on the subject, please, and just to remember that the examples that you give are going to be for educational purposes. It's not a session. If you need a session, call us, and if you need more time, call us, and happy to give you a free 15-minute consultation, okay? So with that said, the caller's back. Okay, hi. You are on the couch.
Oh, are you talking to me?
I am. And who is this?
Oh, God. This is a current victim.
A current victim? Okay.
Yes, and nobody's understanding, and it's of the Jewish faith.
Okay.
I'm shaking right now because I'm traumatized from the event which occurred 2 hours ago.
2 hours ago? Wait, back up for a little.
And it's intergenerational, and now my daughter's hearing it, and It's just, nobody's old enough to say anything, so it goes on because all the peers are dead.
Okay, so slow down because I really want the audience to be able to hear you. I'm really, really sorry. I hear that you're crying. And is this to do with smothering?
Correct.
Okay, so what happened?
That's just the way that my mother raised me.
Okay.
Was smothering. She's a narcissist. My brother is the golden child. I'm the black sheep. Whatever I do is wrong.
Okay, and how were you smothered? How do you see it to be?
But by the micromanaging, everything that I do is up for criticism.
Okay. Okay, what have you been criticized for?
Well, you know what? I really thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
I don't think I should be talking anymore now. I think I'm going to just get more repercussions. So I thank you so much for listening, you ladies.
No, of course.
Bless you.
Okay,
Bless you.
all
Bless
right.
your
You
heart.
take care of yourself.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
And
thank
so
you. Thank you. Be well.
Yeah, be well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Okay. So this is a great example because obviously this person is really distraught, and this is beginning to tell us that this is a result of her smothered mother and the micromanagement and so on, and she's so smothered apparently that she doesn't really seem to want, she's kind of coming close to revealing something, but she doesn't want to because it seems like one of the aspects of smothering is if you talk and you talk against the family, no good. Doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Makes sense. Okay.
Totally.
Okay, so so this silent killer, I want to talk about a different angle on smothering. And having grown up in Beverly Hills and also having gone to Beverly Hills High School, and my children, and you too. I forgot about that. Okay. Yay, Normans, right?
Yay, Normans.
Okay. All right. So being that I saw with my very own eyes some pretty tragic events at the high school and also amongst my children's friends going to some funerals, unfortunately.
Wow. Sorry.
And so the one that comes to mind, most poignantly to my mind, is a case of smothering. And I'm just going to be very general about this because I don't want to cause any pain or embarrassment. But in general, what happens oftentimes is in very wealthy families, instead of taking the time to really be with your children, what families sometimes do is they offer up things, money,
totally,
items, cars. You don't have to work. Don't worry, Johnny. You don't have to work. The family's very wealthy. We have a trust for you, and just kick it back and tap into the trust, and you don't have to do much.
Right.
And here's the ugly conclusion on that one. So what happens is these people take the parents up on the offer. I mean, why not? Drugs, sex, rock and roll, okay? So why not kick back, have a good life, surf, drink, right?
Yeah.
Listen to music all day. And then what happens as a result is sometimes, not always, people might get heavier into drugs because they're not really manifesting their self-esteem, because their self-esteem is being bought by the parents.
Yeah.
So their inner core never develops.
Right. They begin to lose their independence and their individuality at the expense of, what their parents expect of them.
Right.
Just meeting their parents' needs and emotional needs as well.
And that's another kind of smothering. That's
sure.
That's the next chapter, smothering. But in this chapter, smothering, I'm talking about a real free-for-all. Let's put the pillow under the person's butt and just let the person do whatever they want, sleep in however long they want.
Right.
And then at the end of that story, unfortunately, there's no self-esteem left. There's no sense of self left. And they develop what I often refer to as the hole in the soul. And this hole in the soul gets filled by drugs, sex, and rock and roll, as I like to put it. And then sometimes people will overdose, and it is just the saddest thing.
Yeah, that is.
Bright, healthy, beautiful people overdosing. That's why I call smothering the silent killer. And so, again, this is a call-in show, so please do call in, 323-843-2826. And you're on the couch with Dr. Judy and Jasmine Elazari, MFTi and PhD candidate. So let's talk about that other kind of smothering. Let's refer, if you don't mind, to the Persian culture.
Sure.
Let's talk about that, okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
So tell me, you were starting to tell me a little bit about the status of the man in the family, the status of the woman, the relationship of the man with the parents. And so how does that go?
And this is just, it doesn't go for every Persian family, of course, but in my experience as a clinician and working with a lot of families, I've found that there have been, traditional roles in the Iranian community where we have father as breadwinner, we have mother as homemaker, and the roles are very much in place as to what the expectations are and so on and so forth. So would you say that in the case of the traditional Farsi family, Persian family, that the man is automatically placed on a pedestal? Yes.
Okay, so he's the king. He's born the king.
Culturally, yes, men are born the king.
Okay.
They're very much, because men are looked upon as so... they're very much glorified in our community because, in the families, we have, like, the men are the ones that are kind of in control of the home and the family and stuff. So
I know we have a call, and I just want to clarify that these are cultural wounds, right?
Sure.
And some of these cultural aspects are very, very importantly enhancing to the human race, because Persian culture is very rich in culture and intelligence and education. So there's the yin and the yang of it. So let's go ahead and take the caller. And hi, you're on the couch. What is your name, please?
You talking to me?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi. Yes. Hi. What's your name?
Hi. My name is Mary Lynn. I talked to you on the phone a few weeks ago from Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, you were going through a tunnel and I lost you and got you back for a minute. I'm surprised I got through. I've been trying to get through and haven't been able to.
That's because I'm not in a tunnel right now.
I talked to you very briefly. My big struggle right now is that I'm losing my therapist of 3+ years.
Okay.
And she is moving, and I have a very strong attachment to her, and we're working on that. I'm going to see her for another 3 weeks.
Okay.
And it's all very out in the open, and we both understand it and all of that stuff, and made some connections as to where that comes from. Okay. And all of that stuff.
So I just wanted to say to you that the topic is on smothering and spoiling. So, so I just wanted you to know that. Is there anything that pertains to that topic that maybe you want to share with with me, the audience, with Jasmine?
Well, I didn't know what the topic was when I called in, but yeah. So I don't know. Do you want me to just? Because it's not really related to that. It's more the opposite, where I just didn't get things.
Where you didn't get things. Okay, so let me just speak to that for a minute, and then please call me back. I promise I'll call you back when I'm not in a tunnel. Okay? We can pick it up, and then I can guide you insofar as what you need to get a new therapist. But generally, so here is... When you're smothered, somebody's basically breathing down your throat, okay? Right. In your case, it's the opposite, because you're being detached from, right? So you'd love to be smothered, in this case by the therapist, because she's leaving. So so what I'm saying here is that when we are disconnected from, then the reaction formation to that might be to have clingy behavior that speaks to the loss. Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
When we're smothered, we want to push away. When we're smothered, we don't separate and individuate. We become enmeshed. As Dr. Murray Bowen talks about, he talks about the separation individuation process. We don't, because we're really expected to cling on to the family and stay really, really close. So we will talk about this separation that you're experiencing with your therapist, and make sure that you have another therapist so that you can experience not smothering, not detachment, but secure attachment. Okay, that's really that middle ground. Okay, and so call me back. Could you please call me back during office hours, and we'll speak further on it. I really appreciate you calling in.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Okay, so thank
Bye-bye.
you. Okay, so can you see 3 little bears, 3 little chairs? One is too hard, one is too soft, and one is just right.
Yeah.
Smothering, okay?
Yeah.
And then anxious attachment is just too far, and the other one. And we have another call in. Hi, you're on the couch. Who's this, please?
Hello.
Hello, what's your name?
Joe.
Joe. Hi, Joe. How you doing? Thank you for calling in. Okay, the topic is smothering and spoiling.
Yes.
So go ahead. Do you have a question about that or an experience you want to share?
Well, actually, yes. I'm calling in reference from my sister and her husband. They smother their daughter, and I'm like the uncle.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, what role do I play when I see this? Because I see it, and it's just extremely obvious. It's helicoptering and hovering with her almost every move. And so, you know, what do I do as someone just on the outside, you know, seeing it happen?
Very, very tough predicament that you're in, because usually mothers and fathers don't like to be told what to do. So what are you seeing happening to this is your niece? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and so what is she being told to do or not to do?
Well, it's almost her every move. I mean, whatever she says or anything. And it's either the mom saying something to her about it or the dad saying something. It's more of a kind of strict, but I know the backgrounds of both people, both parents, and I know that they come from very. The husband comes from a very strict upbringing, but the mother comes from a very. She's had a lot of things happen to her in her childhood, and she's probably just really be protective.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. From a mind map perspective, I don't know if you know anything about the mind map, but put it up there so you can see it. From a mind map perspective, what's happening is this childhood wound of smothering is not allowing her to really have her own mind. And you're watching this. And so what can you offer her? What you can offer her is maybe a day off from all of this, okay? And maybe just to take her out to the movies, take her out to the park. How old is she?
12.
Maybe she can spend the weekend with you guys. Do you have children?
Yes. Older than her.
Okay.
But I'm glad that you said that, because that's actually what I've been doing. Now that she's getting older, their parents are letting her kind of, you know, go do other things, and so I'm taking those opportunities to say, hey, let's go to the park, let's go to the beach, you know, and I take her and my other nephew and niece, so I take them both actually.
Well, she's really fortunate because you're giving her an experience of experiencing herself,
right?
Which is really important, because she's not experiencing herself. And so one of the things that I talk about is being an enlightened witness to people, because the child is trapped in a hostage situation. I like to say childhood is a hostage situation, just because it is. And so she thinks that this is the way of the world. And so you're going to offer her something different, so she could have a different experience of this. And then if she ever does complain to you, you don't have to go against the grain of her parents, but you could say something to her like, what do you think? What's it like for you to have a little bit more say-so or a little bit more freedom? And as she begins to express herself, that she can have a real live example of another way of life, because parents set the bar. And if you're an uncle that sets a new bar for her, then maybe she'll learn that the world isn't as paranoid as the parents are signaling her to be.
Right.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense, and I already have a plan. Like when she turns 18, and I'll do this in the meantime. But I have a plan when she turns 18. I'm like, here's Dr. Judy's book. Here's how to get a hold of her, because I know there's damage.
There's damage, and by the way, I have a mind map video series coming out. I'm just editing it. I keep editing it, and at some point I have to give it up and just say it's good enough. You can find it on my website, drjudywtf.com, under resources, drop-down menu, mind map video series that goes through the entire mind map process. Okay, FYI. Okay, it'll be out soon.
Well, thank you, Dr. Judy. And
You're
welcome.
You're very welcome.
Just
My
a
pleasure.
little bit of your insight and words it's already going to be helpful.
Okay, and she's really lucky to have you. Okay, and just understand that your sister or your brother, sister-in-law, I forgot which are they? Your other.
My sister.
Okay.
And her husband.
Okay, and so they're reacting this way because of their own childhood wounds. Understood?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you much.
Okay,
Good night.
you're welcome. Good night. Okay, so Professor, you are a teacher at a school. Okay.
Yeah.
And so from your knowledge base, first of all, being Persian and in a culture where, first of all, Persia is landlocked, is it not?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so when you're in a landlocked country and there's been a lot of dictatorship there.
Right.
Correct? There's been a lot of smothering of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Totally.
Okay.
And I think, you bring up a very good point, because, it's culturally it lives that way. And that gets, this whole transmission process of how like our family, how it transmits to the different generations. That actually does come from the source, meaning the culture at hand too. So it's interesting how that also plays a big part into how we all relate to one another.
Right. And so when we're in a land that is already a little bit scary, dictatorship, paranoia, right, then you'll tend to have a reaction to control your children, to monitor your children, to really instill in them a sense of a little bit of paranoia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, for a lot of it, it comes from a very good place. It comes from, wanting to protect, and wanting to the best for. But a lot of times, we're misinformed about what protection looks like, because if it's very extreme amount of protection, that's actually what we call smothering and suffocating, and that can lead to a lot of issues. So I think, just educating, and this is so great that we're here right now, kind of educating everyone on what these kind of mean, because smothering, it hasn't been very much, it's not like a very popular topic, I want to say, in a sense, but it's a big childhood wound.
Well, a lot of mothers who smother think that they're doing their child a service, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so they're just thinking that they're extra good and extra cautious. And so let's follow the mind map and see what happens. So if you could put the mind map back up again, and if you look at panel number 1, you could see the shadows over the light. And so the smothering is kind of like a shadowing over.
Yeah.
It's that big parental figure not allowing and trusting that behind this child is a human being that is an emerging figure to eventually manifest and so there's a level of trust that a parent has to have in the
Absolutely.
child. A trust that if he or she falls down, she'll get up. A trust that if he or she makes a mistake, they will correct the mistake. And if they're always there with a proverbial pillow under their butt, right, then they never learn. There's no learning curve here. So they just keep thinking that the parents are going to protect and protect and protect. I had a particular case of that, and I remember that this particular young man was an immigrant from Iran, and he said that his family was phenomenal, very loving and very protective. The problem arose when he came to America and he started getting bullied. Okay, so that the parents made it seem that everything was so insulated, that everything was going to be okay. So they never really taught him how to have a little bit of a fight and bite back. And so he caved under the pressure of being exposed to the society. So he basically didn't have any immune system. He was spoilt and smothered so much. There was no immune system. So he ended up having a lot of paranoia and a lot of implosions. Implosions, right?
Totally.
Right. Panel number 6, instead of expressing and exploding, there's an implosion because they're too scared to really say. They're too scared to really talk. In this case, the people in his family idealized him so that when he got smashed down by the bullies, it was a really big shock.
A big shock
because he thought he was the king. Like, what?
Yeah.
Somebody talking back to me?
Exactly.
So, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it distorts the reality. That cracked lens of perception gets cracked very quickly, and the king falls off the pedestal,
off the throne,
and it's not a very, very pleasant journey down.
No, it's not.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about healthy parenting.
Yeah.
So how do you establish boundaries where it's not too hard and it's not too soft, and that you respect your child as an emerging human being that needs to learn from experience?
Right.
And so how do you balance that?
How do you set the scene for that?
How do you set the scene for that?
Yeah. So, if I were to just pick some theories that kind of support this idea.
Sure.
In tune to Bowen.
Yeah, Murray Bowen. I love Murray Bowen.
Love Murray Bowen.
Okay.
This idea and concept of differentiation. So when we talk about differentiation, it really means holding your own, having your own thoughts and feelings, and it's not enmeshed or at the expense of another person's thoughts and feelings. Like those don't creep in to that process. Okay. That's like, I think Bowen, the way that he states differentiation is like the healthiest way to be is to be differentiate itself.
So let's talk about what that really means.
Sure.
Differentiation means that you start out merged with your mommy. Okay, you're merged. You're at one with mom, and pretty soon there's a process of healthy dependency.
Yeah.
And during this process, if it goes well, then in the stage 2-year period-ish, the child starts experiencing a level of individuation and separation.
Right.
And they start differentiating.
Yes.
They start hatching out is what they're doing.
Right.
And then they'll check back with the parent. And if the parent will just grab them and hold them and smother them, then they don't get to
experience that process. They don't get to actually individuate and see themselves as a self, separate from, mother.
Exactly.
Right.
And so when cultures in general are at war, when they're threatened, then doesn't it make sense that they don't want the child to veer very far? So they want to grab that kid, pull the kid back into their arms and make sure. So do you see how these things can be also constructs in the mind of the parent that spell survival?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Panel 5, defense mechanisms. That's a perfect defense mechanism. Pull your kid back into safety zone.
Yeah.
The problem is that when you're not at war, okay, and you're, everything is pretty much okay around you, at some point you have to allow for that process to start up again. And if it doesn't start up again, then what sometimes happens is that mothers and sons or mothers and daughters, they enmesh with each other.
Right.
And we were just talking about this earlier today.
Yes.
The son could be mommy's little husband.
Yeah.
Okay. or the daughter could be daddy's little wife, so to speak. Why? Because, let's say, mother and father are not a strong unit.
Right.
Or let's say one of the family members dies. Okay.
Right.
And the other one then has to huddle closer to mom. Then again, the same thing might happen, is a sense of smothering, a sense of paranoia, a sense of needing the child to be by the parental side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And what gets lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it happen in a lot of families where there's a high conflict between the parents, where they're not really getting along and they're not really getting their needs met.
Yes.
And, we can just take an example of the mother not getting her needs met in her relationship with her husband.
Okay.
And so, they decide to get pregnant. They have a child. Let's say they have a son, and the son becomes this little husband because, it's much easier for her to fulfill her needs through her son than it is through her husband, because, in a couple, we have two individuals, like adult individuals, but a child, bring a child into this world. It's like your creation. It's an extension of self.
Right.
And a lot of times, that can be damaging if there aren't healthy boundaries in play.
And that's why it's so important for mother and father to be the executors. They have to take control of the family system, and they have to act as pillars, because if they're disenfranchised, let's see, best metaphor I have for that is panel number 3. Panel number 3 is a DNA strand. They interconnect. So if there's a mother and a father and they're connected, and then the ladders of the DNA strand are the ladders upon which the children can climb and grow and self-actualize, as Abraham Maslow likes to say, right?
Yeah.
Then if mother and father are not a team, if they're pulled apart, if they're divorced, if they're clashing, if they're not parenting the children in a way that they have an alignment, then what happens is the children don't feel that structure. And then if you look on the mind map, it's pretty self-explanatory. Panels 4, 5, 6, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, WTF. The vicious cycle repeats.
Repetition.
Repetition. And that's why it's so important. It might feel good for that mother to cuddle with her little baby. It might feel good for that father to have his daughter around all the time. But is it good for the child? We know the answer to that. Right?
Yeah, we do. And it's not.
It's not.
It's just not.
So let's take a look at the concept of guilt and shame.
Okay.
So let's take an example. Mother and son are enmeshed. Okay.
Okay.
And mother's not feeling well. This is such a great case that comes to mind right now.
Okay.
I remember a case where mother and son were really enmeshed. Father and mother were not getting along. The marriage was really crumbling.
Yeah.
And every time the son talked about wanting to get married, literally the mother started putting her hand to her chest, and she acted like she was getting a heart attack.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So the message was, you can't leave the house.
Yeah, don't leave me.
Don't leave
I need
me.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, young man was getting very, very ill because he was torn. He wanted to separate, he wanted his own life, and yet he was feeling tremendously guilty for having thoughts of wanting to date, wanting to get married, out of the question, just wanting space, even wanting to close his door and have some time for himself. Knock, knock, knock. What are you doing? Okay. So this is a very, very underestimated and deadly form of child abuse. Let's call it what it is. Okay.
No, I hear that. That makes sense.
Right.
It does.
So to take a child and pull that child into the system because of our own needs leads me back to the conversation of narcissistic parenting. Okay, so the big narcissist word comes out again. Now, what is narcissism? Okay, narcissism simply means a system gone wrong where the parents are using the child in service of their own needs, and instead of attuning to the child's needs, they're having the child attuned to their needs. And so as a result of that, the child is basically all used up in the service of the parent. And so that child doesn't grow, that child doesn't separate and individuate, that child becomes a pawn of the parents. Oftentimes that child will live out parents' dreams, like if father wanted to be a doctor but never ended up being a doctor, well, little Freddie will be that doctor that dad always wanted to be.
Right.
And never do they ask the child, oh, I see you're very artistic. Maybe you'd like to go to art school? No. That gets put on the back burner, and their wishes get put on the front burner.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Sad. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when you, and I know you study the DSM and you even lecture.
I do. I teach a class at Pacific Oaks on the DSM as well. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me some of the, well, maybe let's go into it. There's no diagnoses for smothering, spoiling, is there?
No.
It's not in the DSM, right?
No.
But narcissism is.
Narcissism is.
So how would you define narcissism? What are we on? DSM 5. Thank you. Okay. I need to get my new updated version. DSM 5, right from the professor. Define narcissism.
Narcissism
personality disorder.
Yeah, it's a personality disorder, right? So it's kind of it's a little bit separate from the other disorders in the DSM because it's in regards to personality, and this is different in the sense that this is how a person views the world. And oftentimes people who come in with a personality disorder, they don't feel as though there's something wrong with them because that's how they see the world.
Yes, it's pervasive.
Yes, exactly.
Colors the whole
It colors the whole entire view of and perception of the world and how they see it.
And I call it crack lens of perception.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
This mind map is good stuff.
Maybe it'll get in the DSM 6 or something.
Maybe.
Okay, so from that perspective, so how does one know? And again, I'm not big on labels. I'm a real systems thinker, systems gone wrong. But again, sometimes these descriptions are helpful because they let people know that the system's really gone wrong. So what are some of the symptoms, and how does narcissism apply to smothering and spoiling?
Sure. So one of the biggest things with narcissism is this sense of grandiosity. So already right off the bat, feeling as though, a sense of entitlement, a sense of being on top of the world type of personality.
Okay.
A narcissist lacks a lot of empathy for others. They're not able to kind of connect to other people on a deep level. On an emotional level.
So just to add in the smothering, spoiling element. So can you see how if a child is being used in the service of the parent, they're not really learning relationship. They're feeling used.
Yeah.
Right? So can you see how that just maybe the beginning of the seed where they're not really learning to interconnect and relate.
Right.
They're learning already that they're objects.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. They're learning already that they're objects. Yeah. They're not really able to, they don't have the tools, to kind of hold a interconnected relationship where I am me and you are you. And like, here's a space where we're sharing ideas and, understanding one another. It's more, well, I was an object for my whole entire life. So, that's how it's going to kind of be, and so what was fed to them is kind of what they're projecting out, right?
Yes.
Type of thing.
And so what kind of relationships are they going to have?
Not good ones.
not
dysfunctional ones.
Dysfunctional ones. Now, on the other hand, the borderline personality disorder, how does that differentiate from because we do a lot of shows on borderline narcissists. I know the audience is really interested in this topic. Yeah. What's the distinction between the two? And a very good question that I was asked several times, do they often interlap? And does a narcissist show borderline tendencies? Does a borderline show narcissistic tendencies?
I think, I think so. Okay. I think the two really go well together in the sense that,
dysfunctionally well
together, exactly.
Right. Not so well together.
Not so well together. Thanks for the correction.
Sure. It's not like wine and cheese.
No, it's not. It's not at all. No. I think so. Borderlines tend to have, it's kind of like a wound is like it feels like a deeper wound. They're just very wounded, and there's a lot of anger and around that, and it comes out in a way of like needing. They need those supports. They're not able to feel like fully functional without another person. So there's a lot of dependency.
So were those I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Are these people generally, would you say, borderlines are smothered, or maybe the opposite is so?
I think the opposite, right? They're more neglected, maybe abandoned.
Yes.
Maybe bottled up a lot of shame, the opposite. The opposite.
Right. And so at the core of the borderline personality disorder is a sense of an emptiness, a lack of emotional regulation, and a fear of abandonment. Whereas with the narcissist, what's at the core of that narcissistic personality?
Oh my gosh.
I think at the core there's a sense of false self, so they don't even know what is at the core. No, because they have to build up this false sense of self to survive, and then underneath is a fear that there's nothing there, so they act as if.
They act as if, and I think the biggest fear is that I'm not good enough, like I'll never be good enough. And as a defense mechanism to that, they kind of portray a sense of self that is very grandiose, or they act out this way of looking a certain way that they have it all together and they're great and they're wonderful, where it's a false self that's being projected,
which is taught by the parents who put them up on the pedestal. So you see how it's interconnected.
Yes.
To the spoiling, to the overvaluing. So when an individual doesn't have a sense of ownership, because we're supposed to have self-esteem built on what we earn, right?
Yes.
We don't just get trophies handed to us just because we're nice people.
Right.
Okay? Or just because we're the son or the daughter of so-and-so and such. We're supposed to earn these things. And if we're just given and given and given, we get a sense of entitlement.
Yes. Exactly.
And then the laziness and all that hole in the soul stuff starts to emerge, and then the drug, sex, and rock and roll come in there, or the building of the false self. So can you see how messy the system
Absolutely.
is? Right?
System gone wrong.
System gone wrong.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So what is the solution? The solution is the better parenting. The parents that are on the same team, parents that do their own work on themselves so that they don't pass multi-generationally their psychopathology. I like to call it the psychovirus, doesn't get passed down to the next generation. And for those of you who do not have my book, you can pick it up at Amazon or through my website, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, and it really breaks it down very well, as does my mind map video in a very detailed way. So if you want to avoid all of this what the Freud stuff, if you want to avoid all of these wounds of childhood and so on, even if you have been wounded yourself, you can still clean up.
Yes.
You can still recode yourself by decoding all of this faulty, infectious material,
right?
And clean out these wounds of childhood so that you don't have to be compromised.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And you can lead healthier lives and have healthier relationships.
And you have to do the work, because it just is not going to be, again, it's oftentimes not handed to you. I know we just have a few minutes left. Yes. Okay, we have a few minutes left. So with those few minutes, we're going to do our Shrink That Tune.
Yes.
And we're going to analyze a song called, let's see, what is it called? It's called Smother. What a great title for our show.
How fitting.
How fitting, right. Okay, daughter lyrics, Smother. So we'll shrink it together.
Okay? Yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay, let's go for it. I'll come closer to me, and I'll read the first paragraph, and then you tell me your thoughts. Okay. In the context of smothering, spoiling. I'm wasted, losing time. I'm a foolish, fragile spine. I want all that is not mine. I want him, but we're not right.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
So I think this person is probably talking about a lover, like someone who she was, wanting to, is in love with.
Okay.
And she maybe is faced with the harsh reality that she is smothering, or that she has this, part of herself that needs and is dependent on others. And she is aware that maybe she won't be able to have this person because of that, or be in a relationship with this person, I should say, because of that.
And the line, I want all that is not mine. So here's the entitlement starting to come in, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So in the darkness, I will meet my creators, and they will all agree that I'm a suffocator.
So I think creators maybe meaning her parents, right?
Maybe the parents, or I'm looking at it more as the truth light,
Okay.
like the truth is looking, and they will all agree that, honest, rigorous feedback, hey, open your eyes, you're kind of a suffocator, and look why people are running away from you.
Right. Yeah, because it doesn't really feel good to be with someone who, that you feel suffocated by, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just to veer off a little bit, one of the things we were also talking about is that in relationships, it's really important to pick people who are on the same page of intimacy with you. So
Absolutely.
If you like to be alone a lot, pick somebody that also likes to be alone a lot. And if you like to be kind of very close, then it's important to be with somebody who also likes that, or else you're going to really...
It's important to be on the same page, but it's also important to know what your pages are, Very,
very good point.
To be honest and communicate about that is important.
Okay,
so let's move forward.
So I should go now quietly, for my bones have found a place to lie down and sleep, where all my layers can become reeds, all my limbs can become trees, all my children can become me. What a mess I leave to follow, to follow, to follow, to follow. Boy, this person's really doing a lot of following here.
Yeah.
I should now go quietly. I mean, that sounds like retreat. Lack of self-esteem.
Lack of self-esteem.
In the darkness, I will meet my creators. They will all agree that I'm a suffocator. Suffocator. So this woman is aware, but I don't think she knows how to control herself, does she?
No.
No.
Yeah, she's aware of, it sounds like she's very lonely too, because she's aware of everything that's kind of, that she's causing. But she doesn't seem to feel like maybe she has a handle on it, or that maybe people would want to listen to her, that people would be interested in what she has to say. I don't know, it's just what I get from that.
Well, it's true, because if you're trying to smother people, they're not going to be interested in what you have to say. They're going to want to run.
Right.
Oh no, I'm sorry if I smothered you. I'm sorry if I smothered you. I sometimes wish I'd stayed inside my mother and never to come out. I love that line, because it's such a statement about, I'm never really going to learn how to have a relationship. So I might as well just stay connected to my mother.
Yeah.
Don't even come out. Don't even try to separate and individuate. Don't try to play the game of interconnection.
Well, it's comfortable there. You know, both people are getting some need met, or else it would never even be in place, right? So there's something there that is keeping them there. But there's this wish, I think, that she has to kind of move out of that space and have, relationships. And it seems like she's so sorry that she's causing all this pain to another person.
And then gives up and says, I'll just stay inside my mother. I'll just be enmeshed.
Yeah.
So
I'll just be enmeshed.
I'll just be enmeshed. So I know we're very short on time. I just wanted to remind the audience that we at the Psychological Healing Center do mind map therapy. We don't deal with the symptoms. We go right for the cause of symptoms. And so we decode your past to recode your future. And again, I'm welcoming you on board.
Thank you.
My latest
it's a pleasure. Thank
team
you,
member,
Dr. Judy.
and so lucky to have you. A professor,
likewise.
an educated, lovely
Thank
person.
You. Thank you so much.
And reminding the audience that we can provide lower fee sliding scale services, and Jasmine is really very, very giving and loving and able to conduct Skype therapy, one-on-one therapy, and you're welcome to connect with her.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, and have a free consultation with her as well.
Sure.
And so I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
And please feel free to be in touch and suggest topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Judy.
My pleasure.